Do you love stories that surprise, inspire, and sometimes even scare you? Then subscribe, and let's begin today's tale. Subscribe now. The day before we left for the woods, things already felt strange. It started at breakfast. Dad was excited, going on about how peaceful the cabin would be, no neighbors for miles, just us and the trees. Mom smiled, but she looked uneasy. She asked, "Are you sure this place is safe?" Dad laughed it off. That afternoon, we packed the car. While loading the bags, our neighbor Mr. Lee stopped by. He was an old man who had lived down the street for years. He almost never talked, but this time he did. He stared at the car, then asked, "Where you all headed?" Dad told him, "A little cabin up by hollow pines. Just for a few days." The old man's face changed. His smile dropped. He shook his head slowly. "You shouldn't go there," he said. "Why not?" Mom asked. "Bad place. Folks don't come back." Then he just walked away without explaining. We all laughed it off at the time. Dad said, "Old men like that love their ghost stories." But I kept thinking about his face. He wasn't joking. That night, when I was lying in bed, I dreamed of trees, a forest that stretched forever. And in the dream, I heard voices. Low, chanting voices. I woke up sweating, heart racing. When I told my mom in the morning, she said it was just nerves. "You're excited?" she said. "Don't worry." But I remember looking out the window as we pulled out of the driveway. Mr. Lee was standing on his porch, staring at us. Not waving, just staring, like he already knew what was waiting for us. And we ignored the sign. What started as a peaceful family vacation twisted into a nightmare because something in the woods was waiting for us. And it wanted blood. We drove for hours, down roads that grew smaller and lonelier. The highway turned into dirt, and the dirt cut into a tunnel of trees. The forest swallowed us. Dad was in front, hands tied on the wheel. Mom sat next to him, trying to smile, but her eyes stayed on the map. My little sister, Emma, sat beside me in the back. She pressed her face against the window and whispered, "It feels like the trees are watching." I told her not to be weird, but I felt it too. The deeper we drove, the quieter it got. No cars, no houses, not even birds. The cabin showed up at the end of the narrow trail. It looked harmless at first. 2 bedrooms, a small porch, firewood stacked neatly on the side. Like something out of a postcard. Dad grinned and said, "See? Perfect." Inside, it smelled of damp wood. There was a guest book on the table. People had written things like, "Lovely stay," and "We'll come back for sure." But in the middle of the book, whole pages had been torn out. Not clean, jagged, ripped, like someone didn't want the words seen. That night we lit a fire and sat around roasting marshmallows. For a moment it almost felt safe. But when we went to bed, I couldn't sleep. Sometime after midnight, I heard it. Footsteps outside. Slow, heavy, crunching against the leaves. I held my breath and listened. The steps circled the cabin, then stopped at my window. I was too scared to move, too scared to scream. And then, clear as anything, I heard a whisper. Not words I understood, just broken sounds. Low, chanting. I sat up, heart racing, but when I looked out the window, there was nothing. Just trees pressed tight against the dark sky. In the morning, Dad laughed when I told him. "Animals," he said. "But animals don't whisper." The second day should have felt normal. We made breakfast, walked around the cabin, even joked about building a fire again that night. Dad acted like everything was fine. Mom tried to go along with it, but I kept thinking about the whisper I had heard. By afternoon, the air changed. It felt heavier, like the forest was pressing closer. Even Emma noticed. She wouldn't leave the porch. She just stared at the trees, chewing on her nails. That evening, something new appeared. When we opened the door, there was a bundle sitting on the porch. Sticks tied together with twine. Bones mixed in with them. Small bones, too clean to be from the forest floor. Mom gasped and asked Dad, "Who would leave this here?" Dad picked it up and tossed it into the trees. He said, "Some stupid prank. Locals messing with tourists." But there were no locals. We hadn't passed a single house for miles. That night, Emma refused to sleep alone. She whispered to me, "I saw someone by the trees." I told her she was dreaming, but she shook her head hard. No, they were standing there, watching. Later, I couldn't sleep again. I sat up listening. At first there was nothing. Then came the sound of rocks hitting the cabin walls. Soft at first, then harder, one by one. Dad got up angry, grabbed the flashlight, and stormed outside. I stood by the window and watched. The light cut through the trees, but the forest swallowed it whole. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. When he came back in, he said it was nothing. Maybe kids. He was sweating though. His hand shook when he set down the flashlight. The next morning, we found a dead bird nailed to the porch railing. Its wings spread out, its head twisted the wrong way. Mom told Dad, "We need to leave." Dad just stared at the trees and said nothing. That night was worse. We were sitting by the fire inside when Emma screamed. She pointed to the window, and I saw them too. Figures between the trees. Not moving, not hiding, just standing there in long dark robes, faces hidden, watching the cabin. Dad grabbed the flashlight again and shined it right at them. The beam hit, but they didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't run. They just stood there like the light didn't matter. Mom pulled Emma close. My skin went cold. That was when I understood. This wasn't animals. This wasn't kids. This was people. And they wanted us. The third day was silent. Too silent. No birds. No bugs. Not even wind. The forest stood still like it was holding its breath. We didn't talk much. Mom kept busy, cleaning and cooking even though none of us were hungry. Dad tried to act normal, but his eyes were on the trees every time he thought we weren't watching. Emma sat on the floor with her toy rabbit. She kept whispering to it, like she didn't want to say the words out loud where we could hear. When I asked her what she was doing, she said, "They told me not to tell you." I asked, "Who told you?" She pointed at the window, at the woods. By afternoon, Dad found something by the back door. Another bundle. This one wasn't sticks. It was feathers tied with hair. Human hair. Long, dark strands knotted tight. Dad cursed and threw it in the fire. The smell made us gag. That night, we locked every window and door. We sat in the living room with the lights off, like hiding would keep us safe. But it didn't. Scratching started at the walls. Not like claws. Like nails. Slow, steady, dragging across the wood. Then came the thumps. Heavy steps circling the cabin. More than one person. Maybe 5. Maybe more. We couldn't count. Emma cried into Mom's chest. Mom whispered, "It's okay. It's okay," but her voice shook. Dad held the flashlight and the axe he found in the shed. His hands trembled so bad the beam of light shook across the ceiling. Then the smell hit us. Rot. Blood. Something left out in the heat. It seeped into the cabin through the cracks. I went to the window even though I didn't want to. And I saw it. On the porch, right in front of the door, someone had left a body. Small. A raccoon, cut open, its insides pulled out, arranged in a circle. The chanting began then. Low voices, rising and falling like the forest itself was breathing. Dad shouted, "Leave us alone." His voice cracked. The chanting grew louder. I backed away from the window. My whole body was shaking. We didn't sleep that night. None of us did. We sat in the dark until the chanting stopped. Until the steps faded. Until the scratching ended. When the sun finally came up, the raccoon was gone. The blood was gone too. But on the porch, carved into the wood with something sharp, was a single word. Welcome. The fourth night was when the forest stopped playing with us. It began with the windows. Soft taps, one after another, like fingertips. At first only one. Then 2. Then all around us. The sound moved from one side of the cabin to the other. Too steady to be wind. Too smart to be chance. Emma screamed and buried her face in Mom's arms. Mom held her tight, whispering, "Don't look, don't look." Dad grabbed the flashlight again and opened the door before we could stop him. He shined the beam into the dark. Nothing. Just trees standing tall and black. Then a rock hit the side of the cabin. Hard. Another one struck the roof. Then another, slamming the wall so loud it made the wood shudder. "They're trying to scare us," Dad muttered, gripping the axe. But his voice shook. We turned off the lights, hoping that if we stayed quiet, they'd go away. But that was when I saw it. At the window, a face. Pale. Eyes wide, unblinking. Staring straight in at me. I stumbled back and shouted. Dad swung the flashlight toward it, but the face was already gone. We huddled in the living room, holding our breath. Then came the creak of the porch boards. Slow steps. One by one. Someone was standing right outside the door. The knob turned. Rattled. Slowly at first. Then harder. Then shaking violently like whoever it was wanted to rip the door off its hinges. Dad pressed his back against it, shouting, "Go! Get out of here!" For a moment, it stopped. Silence. Then we heard it. Inside. The kitchen. We all froze. I didn't understand how they got in. Every door was locked. every window sealed. But sitting on the kitchen table was another bundle. Sticks tied with red cloth this time. And tucked into it was something worse. A bullet. One of Dad's. He ran to his bag, ripped it open, and dumped the ammo box on the floor. Empty. Every bullet gone. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad just stared, his face pale, whispering, "How the hell?" It meant only one thing. They had been inside already. While we slept. While we thought we were safe. The scratching returned, louder now. Nails dragging across the windows, the walls, the roof. Surrounding us. Then the chanting rose again. Dozens of voices. Some deep, some high, all broken and wrong. We stayed awake until morning, shaking, trapped, listening to the forest call for us. When the sun came up, the bundle was gone. But the bullet wasn't. It sat on the table, alone, waiting. By morning, we all knew it. We couldn't stay another night. Mom said it first. Her voice was flat, like there was no argument left in her. "We leave now? Today?" Dad didn't fight her this time. He just nodded. His face was gray, his hands shaking as he packed the bags. We rushed to the car. I held Emma's hand so tight it hurt her. She didn't complain. She just stared at the trees, eyes wide, whispering, "They're waiting." Dad turned the key. Nothing. The engine coughed, then died. He tried again. Nothing. He popped the hood, bent over, and swore. "Wires cut." Mom's face went pale. "They don't want us to leave." We stood there in the heavy silence. The woods pressed around us, thicker, darker, even though the sun was still up. Then came the sound. A branch snapping. Then another. Slow. Deliberate. Figures in the trees. Dozens this time. Not hiding anymore. Just standing there, watching. Some held lanterns. Some held knives that caught the light. Dad slammed the hood shut. "We run," he said. His voice was hard, but his eyes gave him away. He was terrified. We grabbed what we could and took off down the dirt road. The gravel crunched under our shoes. The forest on both sides seemed to close in tighter the further we went. At first it was quiet. Then the voices started. Chanting, low and steady, rising from the trees on both sides of us. Emma sobbed as we ran. "They're everywhere," she cried. I looked back. They were moving now. The figures had left the trees and stepped onto the road. They weren't running. They didn't have to. They knew we were trapped. We ran harder. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But the road stretched on forever, twisting deeper into the forest instead of out of it. Then the chanting grew louder, closer. Torches flared between the trees. Shadows moved alongside us, keeping pace. Dad shouted, "Back to the cabin. Go." It felt like the worst choice, but we had none left. We turned and stumbled back, hearts hammering, throats raw. By the time we slammed the cabin door shut, the chanting was all around us. The sound of hands slapping the walls, fingernails dragging across the wood, feet stomping on the porch. Dad pushed the couch against the door. Mom dragged the dresser in front of the window. Emma covered her ears and rocked back and forth, crying, "Make it stop! Make it stop!" The cult didn't break in that night. Not yet. They just circled, scratching, chanting, laughing sometimes, like they knew we had nowhere to go. When morning came, we opened the door slowly. The woods were silent again. But on the dirt road, in the soft mud, were dozens of footprints. Bare feet, all leading toward the cabin. And none of them led away. That night the forest didn't wait. The sun had barely fallen when we saw the first torch. A flicker of orange between the trees. Then another. Then 10 more. The woods glowed with firelight. "They're here," Mom whispered. Emma clutched my arm, so tight her nails dug into my skin. She didn't cry this time. She just shook. The chanting started again. Low, deep, rolling through the trees like thunder. Dad gripped the axe with both hands. His knuckles were white. He stood at the door, shoulders tense, sweat dripping down his face. Then they stepped out of the woods. Men, women, some old, some young, all dressed in dark robes that blended into the trees. Their hoods were back now. We could see their faces. And that was worse. They weren't monsters. They weren't demons. They were ordinary people. Faces you'd pass in a store. Faces you'd trust. But every one of them was carved. Strange symbols cut into their foreheads, cheeks, and chins. Some fresh. Some scarred over. Their eyes were empty. Dead, but burning with something I couldn't name. One of them stepped forward. An older man with gray hair and lines down his face. He carried a torch in one hand and a long knife in the other. He raised his arms, and and the chanting stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, like a preacher. Blood for the forest. Blood for the roots. Blood for the pines. The crowd repeated after him. 100 voices, maybe more. Blood for the forest. Blood for the roots. Blood for the pines. They slammed their hands against the walls. Pounded the windows. The whole cabin shook. Emma screamed. Mom pulled her close. Dad shouted through the door. Leave us alone. We don't want any trouble. The old man smiled. His teeth were stained red. You already belong to us, he said. Then the glass shattered. A window by the kitchen broke inward. A hand reached through, bloody and clawed with dirt. Dad swung the axe, hacking down on it. The scream that followed was human, high and broken. The hand jerked back. But more came. Faces pressed to the windows. Fists hammering the walls. Voices chanting louder, faster, shaking the night. Mom dragged the dresser tighter against the window, crying, We can't hold them out. The old man laughed. A sound that didn't match the human face it came from. Then, all at once it stopped. The pounding. The chanting. The laughter. Silence. Torches still burned outside, glowing through the cracks. Shadows shifted against the cabin walls. But they didn't attack again. Not yet. Dad sank to the floor, clutching the axe like it was all he had left. Mom held Emma, rocking her. I sat by the door, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. And in the silence, the old man spoke again. Tomorrow night, he said softly. Tomorrow, we take what is owed. The night dragged on forever. Every sound made us jump. Every shadow looked like a face. But the cult didn't come back. They just waited. By morning, we were broken. None of us had slept. Our bodies shook from fear and exhaustion. We can't wait for them to come again, Mom said. Her voice was hoarse, cracked from crying. We have to run. We have to try. Dad stared at the axe in his hands. His face was pale, his eyes empty. Finally, he nodded. We'll split. It's the only way. What do you mean? I asked. They want all of us, he said. If we stay together, we're easier to take. If we split, maybe some of us get out. Mom shook her head, grabbing his arm. No, I'm not leaving you. He looked at her, and for a moment, his eyes softened. But then he pulled away. You have to take the kids. I'll hold them off. Emma started to cry. I don't want to go without you. Dad knelt in front of her, putting his big, rough hands on her shoulders. You listen to me. You stay with your brother. You don't stop running. You hear me? Don't stop. Emma nodded through tears, but I could tell she didn't understand. Not really. By the time the sun set, the torches were back. The chanting rose again. Louder. Closer. Dad shoved me and Emma toward the back door. His face was wet, but his voice was firm. Go. Now. Mom grabbed his hand. For a second, I thought she'd come with us. But then she whispered, I'm not leaving you. He tried to argue, but she shook her head. If we die together. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Dad opened the back door just a crack. Run, he said. I grabbed Emma's hand, and we slipped into the night. The forest swallowed us whole. Behind us, I heard it. The door crashing open. Screams. Mom's voice, high and sharp. Dad shouting. The crack of wood. The chanting growing wild. Emma whispered, They got Mom. Her voice was small, broken. I pulled her harder through the trees, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. We crawled into the brush, hiding under branches and leaves. I risked a look back. Through the gaps in the trees, I saw them. Figures dragging something out of the cabin. 2 bodies. My parents. Bound. Bleeding. The cult raised their torches and cheered. The chanting grew louder, echoing through the forest like it was alive. Emma buried her face in my chest. Are we next? She whispered. I couldn't answer. I just held her tighter. Because I already knew the truth. Yes. The forest was not quiet anymore. It breathed. It groaned. It whispered. Every branch creaked like it carried a voice. Every shadow shifted like it was alive. I pulled Emma through the brush, trying not to make a sound. Her small hand was sweaty and shaking inside mine. She wanted to cry. I could feel it, but she didn't. She just clung to me, trembling. Behind us, the chanting moved. Closer. Then farther. Then closer again. They weren't rushing. They didn't need to. They were hunting. We crouched low in the dirt as a lantern's glow slid between the trees. Figures moved past, their voices broken and soft. I couldn't hear words, only the rhythm. A whisper that rose and fell like the forest itself was speaking. One of them stopped. He turned his head. I froze. Emma buried her face into my chest. The man's face was pale in the lantern glow. His eyes were wide and white, unblinking. He sniffed the air, slow and sharp, like an animal. His lips curled into a smile. I thought we were caught. I thought it was over. But another voice called, deeper, sharper, from the dark. The man tilted his head, then walked away, carrying the lantern deeper into the woods. I didn't breathe until the glow disappeared. We ran again, stumbling through roots and thorns, until we saw it, a shack. Small, rotten wood, leaning sideways like it had been forgotten for years. Emma tugged on my arm. No, she whispered. Not there. But we had nowhere else to go. I dragged her inside. The smell hit us first. Rot, mold, iron. My stomach turned when I saw what was in the corner. A pile of bones. Small ones. Large ones. Some cracked. Some gnawed. Clothes, too. Torn. Faded. A pink backpack with cartoon cats on it. A shoe too small for an adult. Emma's lip trembled. She pointed at the wall. Symbols were carved into it. Circles. Eyes. Knives. Dozens of them. Overlapping. Cut deep into the wood with something sharp. I felt my body go cold. This wasn't the first family. This wasn't even the 10th. This had been happening for years. Maybe forever. Outside, footsteps crunched. Voices whispered. Emma whimpered, and I clamped my hand over her mouth. Shoo, I begged. Please, Em. Don't. The footsteps stopped right outside. A lantern glow leaked through the cracks in the wall. A man's voice. Calm. Soft. Almost kind. Little ones, he said. The forest is waiting. Don't hide. The door handle rattled. Emma shook in my arms, tears streaming down her face. I held her tighter, whispering in her ear, Don't make a sound. Don't move. The handle rattled again. Harder this time. Then silence. We sat in the dark, hearts pounding, until the lantern light slid away. I knew then we couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, the forest would take us. The night swallowed the forest whole. Emma and I crept from the shack, moving slow, careful, following the faint sound of drums. Low, heavy, like a heartbeat. We crawled through the underbrush until the trees opened into a clearing. And that's when we saw it. A circle of fire. Torches planted in the ground, burning high, their smoke twisting into the black sky. The cult stood in a wide ring, cloaked and swaying, chanting words that scraped the air like knives. In the center were my parents, bound to 2 wooden posts, arms stretched wide. Blood ran down their arms and legs, dripping into the dirt. Their faces were pale, weak, but alive. Emma whimpered, and I pulled her down flat into the grass. We could see through the gaps, but they couldn't see us. The leader stepped forward. The old man with the gray hair and the red-stained teeth. He raised a long, curved blade, the firelight dancing off it. Blood for the forest, he said. His voice carried across the clearing. Blood for the roots. Blood for the pines. The crowd echoed him, louder, faster, the chant rising like thunder. Mom lifted her head, her eyes searching the trees. For a moment, I thought she saw us. Then she whispered something I couldn't hear. Dad shouted, his voice breaking. Take me. Leave them alone. The old man smiled. The forest takes what it wants. He dragged the blade across Dad's chest. Blood spilled, dark and heavy. The crowd roared. Emma buried her face in my arm, but I couldn't look away. My body was frozen, my stomach twisted, but my eyes stayed locked. They cut into him again. And again. His screams echoed through the clearing, bouncing off the trees. Then Mom screamed too, thrashing against the ropes, but it was useless. The cult only cheered louder. The old man pressed his blade against her neck, and for the first time, she broke. She sobbed, her body shaking, whispering prayers that the forest swallowed whole. Stop, I whispered to myself. Please stop. But the chanting only grew. The old man raised the blade high, then brought it down. Mom's scream was cut short. Emma's sob ripped through the night. I clamped my hand over her mouth, holding her tight, but it was too late. The old man stopped. He turned his head, slowly, toward the trees. The chanting fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned with him, scanning the shadows, looking for us. The silence was worse than the chanting. Every torch in the clearing flickered, every shadow seemed to point at us. The old man's head tilted, his pale eyes staring straight into the trees. He knew. The cult began to move, slow and steady, spreading out in all directions. Their feet crunched the dry needles on the ground. Their breaths hissed through the night air. I grabbed Emma's hand and whispered, "Run." We crawled backward at first, quiet, hearts hammering, but then one of them shouted. A sharp, broken sound. They saw us. I yanked Emma up, and we bolted. Branches whipped at our faces, roots grabbed at our feet, but we didn't stop. Behind us came the roar of voices, dozens of feet crashing through the forest. The woods came alive. Drums pounded again, louder, faster. The chanting returned, echoing all around us, no longer in one place. Now it was everywhere. Emma tripped and fell. I yanked her up, ignoring the sting of scraped knees. "Keep running," I cried. The forest wasn't just dark, it felt like it was closing in. Trees leaned closer, branches clawed at our clothes. The torches weren't behind us anymore. They were to the side. Ahead. The cult wasn't chasing us in a straight line. They were surrounding us. Emma sobbed, her breath short and sharp. "They're everywhere. Don't look back." I yelled. But I did. I saw them. Shapes moving fast between the trees. White eyes glowing in the dark. Faces pale and grinning. Some carried blades. Some just had ropes. And all of them wanted us. A voice rose above the others. The old man. Calm. Clear. "Little ones, the forest calls for you." Emma screamed, and I pulled her harder. My lungs burned. My legs felt heavy, but I didn't care. If we stopped, we were dead. We broke into a clearing. For a second, I thought we were safe. But then I saw them on the other side, torches raised high, waiting. We turned left. Another group stepped out of the shadows. We turned right. More shapes moved, chanting, closing in. They were hurting us. Like animals. Emma clung to me, her voice shaking. "What do we do?" I looked around. No way out. Just trees, shadows, and faces closing in. I swallowed hard. My voice cracked when I said it. "We fight." The circle was closing. Torches burned all around us, firelight flashing off pale faces and hungry eyes. Their voices whispered like the wind, low and steady, carrying the same rhythm we had heard since the start. Emma's hand crushed mine, shaking. "We can't fight them," she whispered. But we had no choice. I looked down. A thick branch lay in the dirt, jagged at the end like a spear. I grabbed it and pulled Emma behind me. My chest heaved. My heart thumped so loud I thought they could hear it. The first one stepped forward. A woman. Her face was painted with ash, her mouth stretched in a grin that didn't look human. She held out her hand. "Come, child," she whispered. "The forest waits." I swung the branch with everything I had. It cracked against her face with a dull thud. She fell, screaming, blood pouring from her nose. The circle roared. They didn't step back. They stepped in. I shoved Emma toward the trees. "Run!" I yelled. We sprinted into the dark, weaving between trunks, branches clawing at us. Shouts rose behind us. Feet pounded. The forest shook. But then I saw it, an opening ahead. A hollow in the earth, covered by roots and leaves. Almost hidden. A place to hide. We slid inside, pressing against the cold dirt. Roots hung like bars above us, letting us see out, but keeping us covered. My hand was still on the branch. Emma's breaths came quick and sharp against my arm. The cult stormed past. Dozens of them. Some ran straight ahead. Some split off to the sides. None of them saw us. For a moment, I thought it worked. Then I saw the old man. He moved slower than the others, his head turning, his pale eyes searching the ground. His lips curled in a smile. He stopped right in front of the hollow. Emma whimpered. I covered her mouth, my body shaking. The old man crouched down, his face close to the roots. His eyes locked on mine. "I see you," he whispered. He raised his blade. The blade flashed in the torchlight. I shoved Emma back, trying to swing the branch, but the old man was faster. His hand shot through the roots and grabbed my wrist. His grip was like iron. He yanked, dragging me out of the hollow. The branch slipped from my hand. Emma screamed, clawing at me, but two cloaked figures caught her. They pulled her out by the hair, her feet kicking, her voice breaking the night. I thrashed, but more hands closed in. Cold, rough. They held my arms, my legs, forcing me down into the dirt. The old man leaned close, his breath sour, his teeth red. "The forest does not forgive thieves," he whispered. "You should have left when it warned you." The cult circled again. Torches lifted. The chanting rose. My chest heaved, my ears rang. Emma shrieked. "Let us go? Please let us go." Her voice cracked, but no one cared. They tied our hands with rope. Thick, scratchy, biting into our skin. They shoved us forward, back into the woods. The drums started again, slow and steady, matching every step we took. The clearing came back into view. The fire was still burning. The blood was still fresh on the posts. My parents' bodies hung limp, swaying slightly, shadows flickering across their faces. Emma's knees buckled. I held her up as best I could, but the cult pushed us on, forcing us into the center of the circle. The old man raised his arms. The roots have fed. The ground is ready. Now the children must seal it. The crowd cheered, stomping their feet, their voices blending with the drums. Emma sobbed into my shoulder. I felt her shaking. I wanted to tell her it would be okay, but the words wouldn't come. I couldn't lie. Not here. Not now. 2 posts stood waiting. Empty. Fresh ropes dangling. They dragged us toward them. I fought, twisting, kicking, screaming, but it didn't matter. Hands forced me against the wood, tying my wrists tight. The rope cut deep, blood dripping down my arms. Emma was tied to the other post. Her small face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with terror. The old man lifted the blade high. The fire lit his face, his pale eyes shining. And the chanting grew louder. Louder. Until it drowned out everything else. The fire burned higher. Sparks drifted into the night like dying stars. Emma's cries cut through the chanting. She pulled against the ropes until her skin tore, but the knots only dug deeper. Her sobs were sharp, desperate, like a wounded animal. I tried too. I twisted, kicked, bit at the wood. My wrists bled. My shoulders ached. The rope wouldn't give. The old man stepped between us, blade raised. The torchlight made his pale face glow. His eyes were hollow, endless, like pits in the earth. Blood keeps the forest alive, he said. His voice carried over the chanting. Blood feeds the roots. Tonight the ground drinks deep. The cult cheered. Torches slammed against the dirt in rhythm. The drums grew faster, pounding like a second heartbeat in my head. He pressed the blade to Emma's cheek. She whimpered, trembling, too weak to scream. Her eyes locked on mine. I shook my head at her, tears blinding me. Don't look, I whispered, though I knew she couldn't stop. The old man's mouth stretched into a grin. He turned the blade, resting it against her neck. The crowd leaned forward, hungry, waiting for the cut. I screamed, "Take me. Leave her alone." He turned, his pale eyes meeting mine. The grin widened. "You will both feed the ground." The chanting rose, louder and louder, the sound pressing in on all sides. My ears rang. My chest heaved. My body shook against the ropes until my skin split. The old man lifted the blade high. And that's when the forest answered. The fire bent. The torches flickered. The drums stuttered. A wind howled through the trees, sharp and sudden, rattling the branches like bones. The flames cracked, spraying sparks across the cult. Some cloaks caught fire. Shouts filled the circle. The old man turned, his blade still raised. His grin faltered. From the dark beyond the clearing, something moved. Not human, not animal, bigger than both. The trees groaned, their trunks bending, roots tearing up from the ground. The earth shook under us. The chanting broke into screams. The old man shouted, "Hold the circle. The forest demands blood." But the forest wasn't listening to him anymore. The cult began to scatter. Some dropped torches, others knives, fleeing into the black. But the trees moved faster. Roots shot from the ground, wrapping around legs, dragging bodies down into the dirt. Screams filled the clearing. The old man stayed. His eyes burned with rage. He spun toward me and Emma, the blade still high. "If the forest won't take you," he snarled, "I will." He charged. The old man ran at us, blade raised. His face twisted, eyes glowing wild in the firelight. I shut my eyes. I thought it was the end. But before the blade could fall, a growl ripped through the clearing. Low, deep, hungry. The old man froze. His head jerked toward the trees. Out of the shadows came glowing eyes. Dozens. Yellow and sharp. Wolves. Their bodies were thin, their fur matted, but their teeth gleamed in the firelight. The forest had called them. The old man screamed at them, swinging his blade in the air. "No, they are mine." But the wolves didn't care. They lunged. The circle broke into chaos. Wolves tearing into cloaked figures, screams ripping through the night. Blood sprayed across the dirt. The chanting turned into begging. The ground turned slick and red. The old man tried to fight. He swung the blade, cutting one wolf across the snout. But another leapt, teeth sinking into his arm. He howled, staggering back. More wolves came, dragging him down. His scream cut through the clearing, high and sharp, until it broke off into gurgling silence. The cult was finished. The ropes on my wrists snapped as a wolf leapt against the post. I fell hard into the dirt. Emma was still tied, her small arms bloody from the rope. I crawled to her, pulling, biting, clawing until the knots came loose. She collapsed into my arms, shaking, sobbing into my chest. The fire burned low. The forest was quiet again, except for the crunch of wolves feeding in the shadows. Then headlights. Blinding white light cut through the trees. A car engine. Voices shouting. Tourists. A couple had taken a wrong turn, their SUV rolling to a stop at the edge of the clearing. They froze when they saw the scene. The blood, the wolves, the broken posts. Help! I screamed, dragging Emma forward. Please help us. They ran. A man and a woman. The man pulled us up, his arms strong, his voice shaking. The woman wrapped her coat around Emma, whispering, "You're safe now, you're safe." The wolves slipped back into the trees, leaving the cult's bodies behind. Only the fire and the blood remained. The tourists rushed us into the SUV, slamming the doors shut. As the engine roared and the car sped away, I looked back through the window. The forest loomed in the dark, swallowing the clearing. The fire flickered one last time before the trees took it. Emma clutched my hand, her face pale, her eyes wide. We were alive, but I knew the forest wasn't done. It had taken what it wanted, and one day it would call again. The SUV tore down the dirt road, bouncing over rocks and roots. Emma pressed against me, shaking under the woman's coat. I held her tight, my arms numb, my body weak. The man driving kept glancing in the rearview mirror, his hands gripping the wheel. "What the hell was that?" he muttered. His voice cracked like he already knew he didn't want the answer. The forest finally thinned. Lights appeared, street lamps, the glow of a gas station at the edge of town. Civilization. They pulled in fast, screeching to a stop. The woman carried Emma out while I stumbled behind, my legs barely holding me up. People came running. Workers, strangers, wide-eyed at the blood, the torn clothes, the scratches across our skin. Phones came out. Someone called the police. Someone else dialed an ambulance. The tourists tried to explain, but their voices shook. Kids, cult, wolves, bodies in the woods. No one believed them. Not fully. Not until they saw us. The sirens came next. Red and blue lights flashing across the dark highway. Officers swarmed us, notebooks out, questions flying. But all Emma did was cry. All I could say was, "They killed my parents." The hospital lights were blinding. Nurses swarmed us, stitching cuts, cleaning blood, wrapping us in blankets. They spoke softly, like we might break. Emma didn't let go of my hand. Not once. The police came again, trying to get details. How many cult members were in the forest? Did we see faces? Names? I shook my head. Faces blurred in my mind. Just cloaks. Just chanting. Just blood. The old man's grin. His blade. His scream as the wolves took him. That was all I could remember. They searched the woods. They found ashes, burned wood, broken posts. Blood in the dirt. But no bodies. No wolves. Nothing left. The police called it hysteria. They said trauma made things blurry. Maybe the cult was just a group of sick criminals, already gone. Maybe the wolves dragged the bodies off. But I knew better. The forest hid what it wanted to hide. It always had. Emma was placed with relatives we barely knew. People who tried to comfort us, telling us we were safe now. But every night she woke screaming, clawing at the air, whispering, "Don't let them take me." And every night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the drums in my head. The police closed the case. The papers called it the Pinewood Incident. A strange tragedy. 2 parents dead. 2 children found alive. The rest unanswered. But in town, whispers grew. Stories spread. People warned travelers not to camp too deep in those woods. They said the forest took people. Sometimes a whole family. Always at night. If you are moved by this story, please share your thoughts in the comment. Let know where you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Folktale by Chris for more inspiring stories like this one. Thanks you for watching.